Hey guys, how you doing? This is JP Saricolia coming to you once again with another book review, and this time I want to review the second volume of the Knightfall series, Batman Knightfall. This is Knightquest. So we have Kelley Jones, and this, of course, he did this art just for this books, and as you can see right there, I really like it. A lot of people are not fans of it, but in my opinion, I really like it. There's some differences in the here on the lettering with the other one. I think that's one of the major complaints when you put it side by side, particularly with the design. Of course, it has a new logo compared to the other, has the old logo. Just a nitpick, but yeah, I understand the point. People want to have something that is similar, for display purposes. And as you can see right there, a new Batman's deadly crusade against the criminals of Gotham City begins. Here at the bottom says, for the first time ever, the entire Knightquest saga is collected in one massive hardcover volume. Batman Knightfall Omnibus Volume 2, Knightquest, includes the best-selling storylines of The Crusade and The Search from Batman 501 to 508, Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 59 to 61, Batman Shadow of the Bat 19 to 28, Catwoman 6 to 7, Detective Comics 667 to 675, Justice League Task Force 5 to 6, Robin 1 to 2 and 7, and Showcase 94 number 7. Now, removing the dust jacket, you can see right here, the art is still the same on the inside on the wraparound cover. You can see, of course, there's no lettering now, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's just the same thing, and it's really, this is a really heavy book. Now let's open it, and here you have the art. I love this one actually. This is Mike Manley, and a lot of the you can see in this book, you're gonna see a lot of his art in the entirety of the book. And this is Kelley Jones. As you can see, that's his art. You have Chuck Dixon, you got Doug Monk, Alan Grant, Dennis O'Neil, Joe Duffy. Those are the writers. You have pencilers Graham Nolan, Mike Manley, Tomm Grummett, Barry Kitson, Jim Balent, Brent Blevins, Ron Wagner, Vince Giarrano, Sal Velluto, and then we have a lot of inkers. We have Scott Hanna, Vince Giarrano, Mike Manley, Eduardo Barreto, Wiacek, Joe Rubistein, Dick Giordano, Joe Beatty, Frank McLellan, Robert Smith, Ray Krissing, Rug McCain, Jim Albrecht, Steve George, and of course you have more people involved in the process. And of course, as always, Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. Here, this is Mike Manley's work again, and I like this one actually. This is another Mike Manley. And there's an introduction. In this case, this is done by Scott Peterson. And Scott Peterson was actually the editor of Batman. So many of the stories, the big editor-in-chief, the one that oversaw the entirety of the collection, that was Denny O'Neil. But of course, Scott was his assistant, and he was a younger. He's very young. He's, I think, 49 years old or something like that. So it's not really that old. So he was an assistant then, and of course he was also an editor or part of many of these books. And here you see many of the covers here are going to be from Kelley Jones, and he does a lot of those covers. And I think that's one of the things you remember the most. And looking into the art, I love the art here. Chuck Dixon, of course, is a big writer of this. Along with Alan Grant and David Monk, but this is Grant Nolan, and I love Grant Nolan. I love his art, his style makes it really cool. Look at this one right here. I love this one. I always love this splash, page, this introduction page. Where it's pretty cool. Love the way Nolan does his work. Pretty cool. There's one of the highlights here. There's other highlights, and I'm gonna point those out. Some of my favorite artists of Batman stories are here. Love the art, love the style. The colors are great. Of course, DC has done a phenomenal job, really bringing these collections to life. Really cool, as you can see right there. Love the way Nolan does those eyes, those beady eyes. He does convey a lot of emotion and the way he portrays those. Really cool, as you can see right there, the Batmobile. This is really a huge book, so it's gonna take us a lot of time, I think, just to go through all of it. But yes, one of my favorite ones. I really, to me, growing up, of course, Knightfall was one of those big, epic stories when I was a teenager. One of the ones I personally really, really love, and I think I love more than the Dead and Return of Superman. This is another Nolan's work here. Really love it. What I like about Nolan's is the way he does eyes. He does these big expressive eyes, and you can see in all his characters, and those eyes really convey a lot of emotion, and he's good at it. One of the things that I look into a lot of the artists of the time, my favorite thing is always the way people portray eyes. For some reason, I love eyes. I love to see people in the eyes. Look at that. Look at the ink in there. It's very good. Really conveys a lot of emotion there. You can see he's a sneaky guy, and you can see, and I think that's one of the greatest parts of a lot of artists is the way some of the artists portray. And I personally I love eyes. I do love the way people do eyes. If you do really uninspiring eyes, it's gonna affect the way people perceive the story. Make it more realistic. Look at Robin right there. And some people were great doing eyes. I love Breyfogle's eyes. And look at this image here of the new Batman standing up. I love this one. And I don't know, Nolan has this his anatomy. It's just phenomenal. And here, what I like about this one, in comparison to the softcover books, is that this one introduces and gives us more than is not included on the softcover. For example, the introduction of Robin. Once you end on the softcover, this goes to the next Batman story. So you don't know exactly what happened after this scene. But here you have Robin, and then you know exactly what's going on. And this is another of my favorite artists of the time, which is Tomm Grummett. Tomm Grummett, I love his stuff he did with Superman. And I love his work. He did a lot of collaborations here. He did some of these pages, and I love it. I think I like Grummett's stuff. I think I like it as much as Nolan's, and love the way he does. He's a great storyteller. He's a great the way he does his panels is cleaner, funner. I really, really, really like it, and I love this Robin stories here, and you can see big panels. He does the big panel, so it's very organized. So some artists have this ability to really recreate art as more classic, and I think he's more classic. Although he has a little more modern feel, modern touch, but still he does a lot of classic panel layout. But you can see right there. Love this one. I love the open spaces. Love the clear. He's very clean. I mentioned this before. If you have watched my video review of this Dead and Return of Superman, you're going to notice he does a lot of the art there. My favorite art there. And of course, you can see it right there. Pretty cool. Love the way he does, this jawline. His jawlines are great. They're different. He does a very pronounced jawlines, and you can see that in some of his superheroes primarily, but in every character. I don't know. Every artist has a signature style. And you can see another Tomm Grummett. This is the second one. That signature style defines the characters, and defines the artist, defines the way this artist work. And look at that. I always love Robin. I love this style. I love his. This one was fun. It was not the greatest, I would say, but it was fun in the 90s to have these stories. A lot of characters in the 90s had their own solo stories. Robin, Catwoman. So it was great. I don't know. It was an idea of giving more validity and more meat to some of these characters that we have known for many years. DC was trying the hardest to really compete with Marvel, but in that time not only Marvel was there was that competition. You also have the newcomers on Image Comics, and of course Image Comics was taking a lot of heat. It was taking a lot of stuff from the competitors, from the big companies. So they try to stay as relevant, and they brought so many artists, and they brought so many different styles, and they come up with so many cool ideas, cool concepts. Look at this fella. Man, he's huge. But Grummett, man, he knows how to make those action scenes, make it look really cool, unbelievable. But yes, and I don't know. This is, to be honest, although I prefer the first issue, and then we go into Shadow of the Bat, and he's the tally man. This is by Grant. and of course Giarrano. Alan Grant, who is a Scottish writer, he was involved in many of these stories here. I can say about Giarrano, he has a very interesting style. I'm not gonna say that I'm a super fan favorite. He inks his own stuff, but some of the stuff is great, really cool. He kind of follows the same suit and Blevins too. He did a lot of the Shadow of the Bat too. They do follow this kind of conceptual art. I think a lot of the stuff that kind of follows the same thing that was after, and of course you saw Frank Miller's art style that was to start becoming very popular after the Dark Knight. That art that he kind of became his signature style. A lot of people were kind of following suit and doing kind of their own thing. I'm not saying that Frank Miller was the one that created that art style. I think he popularized it. He was more popular because of it, and many artists, they find themselves kind of going into it. I love the way he does Italian, man. It's a concept. It's not simple. I think if you are more into the clean art or the conceptual art, you will find it a bit too much or a bit hard to understand or swallow. But I think that it really is good art. I think it's a different art. It makes things different. And what I like about this collection is that it brings so many different artists and all of this combined together to really give everyone a feel of what Batman was and the way Batman was portrayed in the 90s. And a lot of these rich stories and rich writers, really solo stories all put together. Now, when they started with this concept, a lot of people have this consideration, and I always like this one. And I love this. The consideration that actually this was actually created, or the concept of this was done after the Dead and Return of Superman, which is farther from the truth up to an extent. Yes, many people thought that after, of course, the big success of the Dead and Return of Superman, a year after, of course, this story came about, and all times people were saying, well, this is just DC trying to make some money, which is nothing wrong with that. I think it's a business, and you have to do it. Again, the Shadow of the Bat. But the thing is this actually was, according to Danny O'Neill, this was on preparation 3 years prior to this. So it was even before. It was actually both teams started working, the team of Superman and the team of Batman. We started working on this crossover events way before, and actually at the same time. Now, they did not know each other, or they knew each other, but they didn't know they were working on these projects. Look at this one. I love this one. Giarrano did great here. So they started working in these projects, and they were not totally aware of each other's doing. But I think, of course, and by the time that they came about, of course, Dead and Return Superman came first. And then, of course, a year after this came, but they were in preparation for 3 years prior to that. And one of the things about Danny O'Neill, he's mentioning this. His idea was, for the longest, Batman has always been, as you know, if I mentioned this before, Danny O'Neill is actually the guy that we have to thank for the Batman we know. He is the guy. Look at this, that in the 70s, in the late 60s and 70s, alongside Neil Adams, and Dick Giordano, they really created one of the best Batmans. They brought Batman to the basics. Batman to the way it was created initially, the purpose, a darker tone Batman, a guy that, that is dealing with a lot of emotional baggage as well, and a lot of the issues. And he is living in a world full of not just mischief, but a world full of pain. And the pain is reflected in the villains and the way that even characters behave, and even Batman, and this is motives to do what he does. So when he brought it into it, and a more darker tone Batman, he was the one that did it. And it always been Danny O'Neill in the center of a lot of the greatest stories for Batman. In the 80s, some of the best novels, best stories of Batman, like Batman Venom, other things, that he was involved. He was a writer, he was an editor, so he was doing a lot of the Batman stuff for years. He was editing Batman. So for the longest time, a lot of people, of course, things get a little stale, or people start assuming, particularly you look in the late 80s and 90s after Frank Miller's The Dark Knight, a lot of people were asking for more darker tone stories. And DC was providing some stories like you see The Watchmen, you see stories like V for Vendetta, all of that. So it got to a point where a lot of people were saying, why is it, and this is Mike Manley, love this one here, as you can see, very nice. Adrian, the inking, But here you go. But yes, so a lot of people were saying, why is it the Batman cannot kill? Why is it that Batman cannot be go further than what he's doing? What is it that always we have to have a Batman that is on the last moment is afraid to do the last tap? So of course we're coming into more darker times, I suppose. People were thinking like, you know what, if I have the chance to take justice into my own hands, I will kill the Joker. So people were saying, how is it that Batman cannot cross that line? Why is he afraid of? Why cannot we have a Batman that takes man into his own hands? And that really goes against a lot of the principles of the creation of Batman. There's a lot of things there. So in all of that, of course, the idea was most prevalent in the 90s. Of course, you see a lot of stories of superheroes that kill. That Image Comics came about, and of course, you saw a lot of stories where they were taking all were taking the gloves off, and they were just doing whatever. So, not saying that was wrong with that. That was the stories that were created with that purpose. You saw Spawn, and you saw, of course, Youngblood, all of that, and Image Comics. So the idea a lot of people were having, and this is actually Mike Manley again, and this is inked by Joe Rubistein. So Denny O'Neil said, let's give them what they want. And let's do something different. Let's give them what they want so they can know and see and they understand that actually what they want is not what they need. And so they can know that actually the Batman that they have is the one that they deserve, or they want, and they love, and the one they need all along. So this was a very, very good concept, in my opinion. Because sometimes, people, when they create art, sometimes artists, or sometimes companies, they decide to give you what you want. And ultimately, it results in something that is not good. Because the concept is like in writing, and this is something about storytelling. If you give people what they want, you're going to find a boring story. You're going to find a story that is not as compelling as it is to be. Now, when you create a story, and you turn it upside down, and you give them what they want, but at the same time tell them that what they want is not really what they need, then really that creates a real sense of understanding. That really gives depth to the stories of the character, and that really emphasizes the reason why the character was created in the first place. So this was one of the reasons why I think it was a phenomenal idea, and people miss that, or they don't see that as much, because they all see the Jean Paul Valley, and they're assuming, okay, this is what they want to do. They want to destroy our childhood memories. They want to destroy this character. But people were asking for something like that for the longest. So ultimately, people love the storylines, but they hated Jean Paul Valley because the way and his principles, they were completely, his morality was totally twisted in comparison to Bruce Wayne's. So ultimately, of course, in the end, Batman, which is Bruce Wayne, took the reign again. And this is the journey that you go through. Of course, the first book, you talk about, the Batman, you talk about, love this one here. Love it. You saw, of course, Bruce Wayne, and of course how he loses the cowl. But then on this second story, of course, on this second run, you see that development. You see the part where actually Jean Paul Valley is the new Batman, and people are not liking him as the Batman, but they're liking the stories and they're liking the art, of course. And here, just Barry Kitson. Barry Kitson doesn't do much here on this, but I love this one here. Very cool. I like this one. Very nice. Barry Kitson, of course, has a lot of he has a lot of that Nolan's style. I love the way he does some of his panels. I wish it was done more for him here, but I don't know. It's just pretty cool. I'm telling you, some of the greatest arts of the 90s, in my opinion, was in Batman. In my opinion, better than a lot of stuff that will happen in Image. In my opinion. Yes, I love Image Comics. I love a lot of stuff that was done in Image. But if I had to talk about some of the best art, was in DC. DC was doing great art during that time. And Marvel was doing too. But I love some of these artists because I think with Marvel was bringing a lot of young artists into the mix. A lot of young artists. Image Comics, of course, has the coolest artists. The artists of the time that everybody, the superstars. So Marvel was bringing a lot of young talent. Now DC, on the other hand, look at this one, was bringing a lot of more seasoned artists and combining and put them in groups and teams with younger artists. So sometimes you have a very older, a young artist, penciler, and you have a older inker. So you have these teams. So it was more balanced, in my opinion. DC was a lot more balanced in the art. Now we have Knightquest, and this is one of the omissions that I'm going to say. You have Knightquest Catwoman number 6. It's missing number 5. I would have preferred for them to add number 5 to this, so understand it kind of gives understanding of what's happening with number 6. So that's missing. You know, you'll notice if you read this, you're gonna know. And this is the art with Jim Balent and of course Joe Duffy, the writer. Great, I love Joe Duffy's stuff. I wish she had more recognition that she had. You know, right now she has recognition for a lot of stuff she did. You know, she was very influential in the 80s and 90s with a lot of stuff she did, and Catwoman is one of them. But here you can see, love Jim Balent. Another great artist. Love his art. I love his depiction. And now a famous depiction of Catwoman. Very, very strong, but at the same time very sexy and feminine. This is Doug Monk and Mike Manley. This is now on Batman. I love this one. Actually, Mike Manley did the inking on his own art on this issue. So actually, I love his inking. I love the way he inked himself. It's darker. It changes the tone. Sometimes a bit too dark, but nonetheless is very, very, very good. Look at see, it gives a new texture, a new feel to the art. Love this, the silhouettes and that. But you know, the close-ups allow me to really show detail that overhead will not do it. As you know, my reviews are more like a overview of the story, more than just like a quick you know, review, kind of a small overview, so you can kind of like have an idea and then you get the book. I'd rather show you the art and explain it to you. And sometimes I know many of you already read the stories, and you just come here because you just maybe some time to kill, and which is okay. So we can emphasize some of that. Mike Manley, really great. And of course Kelley Jones doing all these covers. Love these covers. I don't know, he was such a great cover artist. He still is, but it's just, look at that. That's Mike Manley. Love this one. This one again, and again, this is something that he's doing his own inking, as you can see right there. I don't know, it's just the art, the style is phenomenal here. Look at this. Look at this. Let's try to move faster. Then you have Duffy, Balent, Giordano, so it goes back to Catwoman, which is phenomenal. I like that. I like that this crossover. So this actually is more complete than the first volume. It's still missing some, but they're more like nitpicks of some sort, so you can have a full understanding of what's going on. And just a few. Some of the Robin stories are not here. Some of the Robin issues after number 1 or 2, it jumps all the way to number 7. So something in between, you don't know what's going on. You know, some of the stories that might not collide with this, but yes, in some senses they do. And some of the issues, of course, of Catwoman are not here, and some other stories that we will see in just a moment that are not here. But you look at this, I love this one, love that. And of course now we go back to Dixon with Batman and Nolan, and I don't know, this is it, you know, all the stuff that was added here, it gives a layer of understanding and appreciation that you will not get anywhere else. Like I said, this is good. Some people would say, I know a lot of times people say this, they don't favor this in comparison to the other ones. But one thing I can say about this run, love at this one, the art is more concise. A lot more concise than it was on the previous one and on the later one. And we'll go in detail about that when we get to that point, when we review Nights In. But here you can see this one. Love this one, this panel here. Nolan again. Love this one. The transfer of this cover is a bit weird. You can look at the color. The copy was wrong. Sometimes some of the transfers are not that great. Like it's not in high definition, like it's just a photocopy. It's kind of weird. I don't know if they have the originals, so they have to do that. Look at this face. I love this Joker face. Nolan knows how to do the stuff here. Yeah, I don't know. You know, this artist, I'm telling you, this artist are some of my favorite artists of the 90s. I remember when I read these stories for the first time. I remember when I read them. I was intrigued. Intrigued, that's the word. Because of it. And you have Shadow of the Bat. You get a lot of Shadow of the Bat stuff here. And this is Blevins, if I'm not. No, this is Giarrano again. Again, look at that. I was intrigued because some of the stories were phenomenal and were interesting. And they were different. It presented a different story. Of course, when you're reading the stories as a young teenager, you're thinking, what is DC thinking? why are they taking Batman and give us this Batman? Yeah, he looks cool. The art is cool, for a 90s version of it. Of course, now as we get older, we realize how dumb it was. The same way we realize that having, like a mullet was dumb, or having, like, baggy pants and, all that stuff was stupid. Like when you look at yourself in the mirror, or you look at those old pictures of you and you realize, what were you thinking, But of course, with time, maturity comes and you realize that, you're young and you were just going with the trends, pouches and all that stuff. And of course, you realize that, time changes and you change and you evolve. And, now I can see that. But during that time, as a young teenager, to me, to think about Batman and the way he was portrayed and the stuff that was happening in the storylines really, really brought everything into perspective for me. And this is Blevins. Here you can see that. Love this one. Actually, kind of like love it. I love some parts of Blevins, where he does some things. Some things I'm not a fan of his really dark tone, but there are times where he does things like this right here. Look at this one. This is actually a fan favorite for many years. I see posters of this. This art here is great. There's times when he does things. I'm not as a fan of all his art, but I'm a fan of the way he portrayed Batman, or the new Batman. And of course, Kelley Jones. I love this cover. And there we go to Manley. Again, another one. I don't know. The concept was cool. Now, you think in the practicality of it, there's a lot of things that are wrong with it, with this suit, If you really come into the aerodynamics of it, this, the big pouches weigh you down, will weigh him down. It's not, and of course, all the metal and all the stuff that he's carrying on top. And, those, like fingers, with the little, razor, pointy fingers and all of that, it's just razor sharp. I don't know. It's just, if you really come to think of it, how can he move around? How can he just, grab things? How can he operate with all that stuff on it? So yeah, it is not practical. It is cool in paper. It is cool, for especially if you're a young 90s kid, it was cool, and you kind of love the idea, but you hated the guy. And that's the part. And, and I would say, I like, the guy, in the sense, I like the name of the guy, John Paul Valley, because that's my name, John Paul, JP. I go by JP, of course. But the guy was just a jerk. There was no way to put it. He was such a jerk, and he was just dumb. And I don't know. It was the way he did. His way of thinking, and to the idea to think that Batman gave him that, give him the chance. I would have given to Nightwing. I would have given to him. But no, I don't know. It was the stupidest idea. But let's not forget, like I mentioned before, this was the plan. People were asking for a tough Batman. And I don't think Dick Grayson would have really filled that bill, because Dick Grayson is not a killer. No matter what people say. No matter what even the new shows of Batman do, like, now the Titans show where, he is a killer and he's just doing crazy stuff. That's just the stupidest idea. Dick Grayson doesn't have an ounce of a killer in him. He has never done in his stories. And I've been reading him from the beginning. I read the 90s, in this case, Nightwing, which phenomenal, and I wish there's an omnibus, and we had an omnibus of this story. Look at this Blevins here. Love this one. Is that Blevins? I'm sorry, I got lost. No, I think not. In any case, I'm moving on. Yeah, I think it's Blevins. So there was no ounce of him of a killer. So it was not. So we need to find a third person, and I think they make the right call in the sense of bring somebody else. There's no one else that can do it, so let's just bring somebody else, an outsider, to do it. And of course, this is the Batman people wanted, and this is the Batman that has no remorse of killing, so let's give him that, the opportunity to kill. And of course, people didn't like it, because it really showed what people in reality were asking for. And they said, sometimes people are going to say maybe it's because you make somebody that is not appealing, maybe just a character that has more appeal, maybe that would work, and that is true. But I think that would change the thematic or the elements of the character or who Batman is. And in the end, Batman is not a killer. Batman is a person that defends, that he finds himself in a position of Bruce Wayne of defending those that he found that cannot defend themselves. It goes back to the moment where he lost his parents and he was unable to do anything to save him because he was so small. He was just a child. So all of that, you see that frustration, that trauma is causing him to really fight for those that cannot fight for themselves. But at the same time, one of the greatest things about Batman stories is his hope. that there is hope that people can be saved. And at the same time, it has been said many times, you don't want to get down to the same place other people have, because if he goes to the same place of these killers or these maniacs go, then he becomes like them. He's one of them. So there's this battle, emotional battle that goes alongside him, where he has to fight himself, fight his own emotions. And here you can see, I love this one. I love this cover. Very, very, very cool. Again, this is Nolan. And, Nolan does, phenomenal here. And, man, what can I say? Everything you see here is just phenomenal, in my opinion. Phenomenal. Look at that. The art is great. The confrontations are great. This is a very famous Kelley Jones cover. I love it, even though it's unpractical. Look at those fingers. There's no fingers in there. There's a ball in the hand, which is dumb. but yeah, it is dumb. And look at all this musculature. People always gonna make fun of this. A lot of people, they're more like, pragmatic, and people that feel like, that you have to be more this and that, forget about it. It's just the story. It's just the cool part of the story. If you go and start thinking about it, you're just gonna find the flaws, and it's not gonna work out. I love this. Love this one here. So you have to kind of figure it out what you're gonna do, and just have fun with it. Read the stories for what they are, and look at that. And knowing that in the end, this is not what ultimately became of Batman, because ultimately people wanted the Batman back, and they got Batman back. So in some ways, you might think that Dennis O'Neil is an artist in manipulation. I think you were manipulated in one way to go back to the Batman that has always been. And part of it feels like it. It does. Because yes, they created a character that was a jerk to take the mantle of the Batman. Everything was kind of cool, but the character was a jerk and a dumb. He was really dumb, at least on his principles. And of course, you develop into all of it, and you create all of that. And of course, it makes you go back to what you already had, which is manipulation in one way or the other. No way to put it. And now you have also Knightquest. It continues with the Justice League Task Force, which is pretty cool stories. I'm glad that they added, this was never added. This was no part of the original, the softcover collection. So the fact that it's here, it adds more meat to it. And I love here, Green Arrow. Look at that. He looks great. Love the artist here. I just forgot the name. But he did a phenomenal job with this one. I liked his art, his style. And I love actually the inking. Whoever did the inking here did pretty good. Look at that. And Shadow the Bat. And this is the part also that what I like about this collection is that it adds all the storylines that were not included on the softcover. Because of the softcover collection, you see, of course, part of the stories primarily. Of course, you see the new Batman and his journey into craziness, and also see some of the Bruce Wayne, but you don't get to see a lot of what's going on with Bruce Wayne in his life, how he's shaping, how he's working things out to try to get back to where he recovers, where he is trying to recover his sanity, physical sanity, his strength. So all of that is included here, which it really adds more weight to it. So it really does. If you have only the softcover collection, which I recommend, you're gonna miss some of the ski issues. You're not gonna see a lot of the Shadow of the Bat stuff, but here it is. And Blevins is also doing here. This is Blevins. So all of this, it really adds more richness to it. And oh, look at this one. This is Breyfogle's cover. Missing Breyfogle. Love his art. I think he inspires so much artists. Breyfogle, his style, his particular style in the 80s, he inspired a lot of artists. And not only that, he inspired a lot of even when I watched the animated series, and recently, of course, he had a new release with Blu-ray. Now with this collection, with of course the Breaking of the Bat, that in the middle, it really gets rich, in my opinion. The stories get rich, where you can see more of that development. You can see the need of a Batman, the need of Bruce Wayne to take the cow. You can see that. So it really brings that depth, to the storylines, which in my opinion was lacking or missing. Love this one here. Look at that. This is gorgeous. Love that one. Love that. So the importance of the necessity of having the real Batman back. And I think that's the part where I don't feel that with the Dead and Return of Superman we had, because there was no really understanding. You won, the Superman back, but the new characters are not rich enough, or well, it kind of like in kind of ways he played the same. They're not likable. But it just the story gets a little dull in the middle. It gets a little slow pace. But here it maintains some speed, and it's interesting, and some people find it good. And this is the conclusion of Knightquest. This is with the Robin story, which I like, and this is included on the soft cover. And you see Grummett, which, like again, my favorite artist, one of my favorite artists of the time, and I love what he did here. Love this one here. Of course, Bruce Wayne comes back, and he wants the cowl back. Of course, he's not gonna get it. Because Jean-Paul already thinks he is the Batman, and he wants to be the Batman, and he thinks he has doing the right thing, which is the stupidest thing, of course. And then there is an afterwork, which I love this. It ends here, and then you have an afterwork, and this is actually Alan Grant, which he was a big part of this book, of course. A lot of the Shadow of the Bat he did, the Scottish writer. And here you have not so many extras, but you have Detective Comics 675 variant cover by Kelley Jones. I love this variant cover. Pretty nice. Also, he has Tomm Grummett. This is Robin #1, and it's got Hanna. This is a newsstand cover. Pretty cool. I like that they added this, a little this. I wish they add more stuff like Marvel does, but I think you already have so many pages in this collection that adding more will be just overkill. And you can see, of course, a new poster. This is Kelley Jones, Kevin Nolan. Pretty cool. And this is, of course, Joe Quesada. And Joe Quesada, did some of the covers, and, everybody loved Joe Quesada's work during that time. And Joe Rubistein do, of course, some of the inking there. And then you hear more, of course, some of this. I think this is Graham Nolan's design. And here you have, of course, Quesada again. Very, very cool design. And then the book ends. Now, to conclude this very lengthy video, do I recommend this book? I certainly do. I highly recommend it. I recommend it if you have volume 1, though. If you have volume 1, you should have this one, and you should have volume 3, of course. If you don't have volume 1, there's no need to have this one. If you didn't like volume 1, then there's no need to get this one. Unless you're a collector and you just want to conclude the storylines, and you just collect, you just buy them for the purpose of collectibles. I like it because it really, encompasses a big part of the Batman mythos, at least from the 90s, and it expands on the story. You cannot read the first one, Knightfall, without reading this one, Knightquest. So I'm very glad that DC managed to really put all this into omnibus collections and into three different volumes, and to add a lot of the content that makes it more complete. Yeah, there is missing some little things here and there, Catwoman or things from Robin, but besides that, everything is really, really complete. And some of the Showcase 94, there's one issue I think before the one we have, I think is number 7, I think number 6, which actually concludes or expands more on the Robin saga that started in 1 and 2 that are here. But, other than that, they're just nitpicks. They're not going to affect really the reading part. You might miss some things and you might ask yourself the question, but it's nothing major. And it makes this book very, very complete. So, yeah, it is a high recommendation from me to you if you have them. They're very affordable right now. You can find them. I have some links below through Amazon, but you can find them in other places as well. Definitely it's a time to get these books. Whether you read this or whether you read the soft cover, of course this is more complete, but the soft covers also will guide you through the process. So once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. Please consider supporting this channel. You can go to my Patreon account. Everything you do, everything you provide or help with will really improve this channel tenfold. And don't forget, you can also download my podcast, and you can listen to my weekly podcast, and you can share all that to your friends as well. So God bless you, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.